Today, I'm going to tell you about an epic showdown from ancient history, the Battle of Thermopylae. This battle went down at a mountain pass in northern Greece called Thermopylae, right by the sea. It's famous for the clash between the massive Persian army and a much smaller Greek force in August 480 BCE. So, picture this: a narrow pass, a gigantic Persian army, and a small group of Greeks led by the Spartan king, Leonidas. The Greeks, even though they were hugely outnumbered, managed to hold off the Persians for 3 whole days. Leonidas and his Spartan warriors, along with other Greek soldiers, put up a fierce last stand. Even though the Persians eventually took the pass, the bravery and heroism of Leonidas and his men became legendary. And guess what? Within a year, the Greeks would turn the tables and defeat the Persians at the battles of Salamis and Plataea. Now, let's set the stage a bit. This battle was part of the Persian Wars. By the early 5th century BCE, the Persian Empire, ruled by Darius I, was on the move, expanding into Europe and taking over places like Thrace and Macedonia. Next on Darius' list was Greece, including Athens. The reasons Persia wanted Greece are a bit murky. It probably wasn't for wealth or resources. It might have been about boosting the king's prestige or dealing with rebellious states on the empire's edge. In 491 BCE, Darius sent messengers to Greece, demanding submission. The Greeks weren't having it. They executed the messengers, and Athens and Sparta agreed to team up to defend themselves. Darius responded by sending a fleet of 600 ships and 25,000 soldiers to attack Greek territories. In 490 BCE, the Greeks, led by Athens, managed to defeat the Persians at the Battle of Marathon. This victory became legendary, but it was just the beginning of a long war. When Darius died in 486 BCE, his son Xerxes I took over and started planning a full-scale invasion of Greece. The Persians prepared extensively. They built depots, dug a canal at Chalkidika, and constructed bridges across the Hellespont for their troops. Greece was about to face its biggest threat ever. Even the oracle at Delphi warned the Athenians to fly to the world's end. And when the news of the massive Persian invasion reached Greece, the initial reaction was to send a force of 10,000 hoplites to hold the valley of Tempe near Mount Olympus. But when they saw just how huge the Persian army was, they pulled back. After a lot of discussions and compromise between the often suspicious Greek city-states, they finally sent a joint army of about 6,000 to 7,000 men to defend the narrow pass at Thermopylae. This force included 300 Spartans, along with soldiers from other city-states like Arcadia, Locris, Phocis, Thespiae, Corinth, Thebes, Phlius, and Mycenae. Now, the size of the defending force was relatively small. This was partly because some Greek city-states were hesitant to send troops so far north, and partly because it was a period of religious festivals, like the sacred games at Olympia and the important Spartan festival, the Carnea, during which no fighting was permitted. That's why the Spartans, renowned as the best fighters in Greece, only sent a small advance force of 300 hoplites, chosen specifically from men who had male heirs. To complement the land forces, the Greek city-states also sent a fleet of trireme warships to hold position off the coast of Artemision, about 40 nautical miles from Thermopylae. They amassed over 300 triremes, with the primary goal of preventing the Persian fleet from sailing down the inland coast of Locris and Boeotia. Thermopylae, located 150 kilometers north of Athens, was a perfect defensive spot with steep mountains running down to the sea, leaving only a narrow marshy area along the coast. The local Phocians had even fortified the pass with a defensive wall, which, although in ruins, the Spartans repaired as best as they could. Here, in this narrow 15-meter-wide gap with a sheer cliff on one side and the sea on the other, the Greeks chose to make their stand. The Persian King Xerxes, who led the invasion in person, had around 80,000 troops at his disposal. Expecting the Greeks to flee in panic, he waited 4 days. When the Greeks held their ground, Xerxes sent envoys offering them a chance to surrender without bloodshed if they laid down their arms. Leonidas' defiant response was "Molon labe," meaning, "Come and get them." And so, the battle began. And it wasn't just a clash of armies, it was a clash of different styles of warfare. On one side, you had the Persians, who preferred long-range attacks using archers, followed by cavalry charges. On the other side, you had the Greeks, who relied on their heavily armored hoplites. These soldiers fought in tight formations called phalanxes, carrying heavy bronze shields and using spears and swords for close combat. The Persian infantry had lightweight, crescent-shaped wicker shields and were armed with long daggers or battle axes, short spears, and composite bows. Their elite force, the Immortals, were better protected with armor and carried spears. The Persian cavalry had similar weapons as the infantry, including bows and javelins, and usually operated on the flanks to clean up after the archers had caused chaos. Even though the Persians had been successful in previous battles during the Ionian Revolt, the terrain at Thermopylae favored the Greek style of warfare. The Persians' tactic of rapidly firing vast numbers of arrows was impressive but ineffective against the Greeks' bronze armor. Spartan indifference to this tactic is famously illustrated by Dionysius, who, when told that Persian arrows would be so dense as to darken the sun, coolly replied that they would then fight in the shade. In close combat, the Greeks had the upper hand. Their longer spears, heavier swords, better armor, and disciplined phalanx formation meant that the Persian numbers counted for little in the narrow pass. On the first day of battle, Xerxes sent his Median and Kissian troops, but they failed to clear the pass. Then he sent in the elite Immortals, but even they couldn't break through the brutal close-quarter fighting. The Greeks used a tactic of feigning disorganized retreats and then quickly reforming into their phalanx, which reduced the threat from Persian arrows and demonstrated their disciplined mobility, a hallmark of their professional training. The second day followed the same pattern. The Greeks still held the pass. But then, a local shepherd named Ephialtes, son of Eurydemos, betrayed the Greeks. Seeking a reward from Xerxes, he revealed a secret path, the Anapaia path, that allowed the Persians to bypass the main Greek forces and attack from the south. Leonidas had stationed Phocian troops to guard this vital point, but they withdrew to a higher defensive position when the Immortals attacked, thinking they were the primary target. This left the path clear for the Persians to outflank the Greeks. With their position now compromised and a Persian attack from behind imminent, Leonidas ordered the bulk of the Greek forces to retreat before their escape route was completely cut off. On the third day of the battle, Spartan King Leonidas knew it was the end. With the Persians attacking from both the front and rear, he rallied his small remaining force, the survivors of the original 300 Spartans, along with 700 Thespians and 400 Thebans, to make a heroic last stand. Their mission was to defend the pass and delay the Persian advance, giving the rest of the Greek forces a chance to retreat, and perhaps hoping for reinforcement from a larger Greek army. Early in the morning, the hoplites faced the enemy once again. Even though Xerxes planned a coordinated attack from both sides, the Immortals attacking from behind were delayed. Seizing the moment, Leonidas moved his troops to the widest part of the pass to maximize their effectiveness. In the fierce battle that followed, Leonidas was killed, and his men fought desperately to recover his body. The Immortals eventually entered the fight from behind, and the Greeks retreated to a high mound behind the Phocian wall. At this point, some scholars believe that the Theban contingent may have surrendered, though this is still debated. Trapped and without their king, the remaining hoplites were subjected to a relentless barrage of Persian arrows until every last man fell. After the battle, Xerxes ordered Leonidas' head to be put on a stake and displayed as a grim trophy. This brutal act seemed to fulfill the oracle at Delphi's prophecy that either Sparta or one of its kings must fall. While the land battle raged at Thermopylae, the Persian fleet faced natural challenges at Artemision. A massive storm off the coast of Magnesia destroyed 400 of their triremes, with more losses in a second storm off Euboea. When the two fleets finally clashed, the Greeks strategically fought late in the day, limiting the duration of each skirmish and neutralizing the Persian numerical advantage. However, the battle ended indecisively, and when news of Leonidas' defeat reached them, the Greek fleet withdrew to Salamis. And the Battle of Thermopylae and the Spartan sacrifice quickly became legendary among the Greeks. Free men, obeying their own laws, had laid down their lives to defend their way of life against foreign invaders. Simonides' epitaph at the site captured this heroic spirit. "Go tell the Spartans, you who read, we took their orders and here lie dead." Despite the defeat at Thermopylae, the Greeks were not done. Xerxes' path into mainland Greece was open, but the Greeks regrouped. Even after many states turned over to the Persians and Athens was sacked, a Greek army led by Leonidas' brother Cleombrotus began constructing a defensive wall near Corinth. The onset of winter halted the land campaign, giving the Greeks time to strategize. At the Battle of Salamis, the Greek fleet lured the Persians into shallow waters and achieved a decisive victory. Xerxes returned home, leaving his capable general Mardonius in charge of the invasion. But after failed diplomatic efforts, the Greeks and Persians met again at the Battle of Plataea in August 479 BCE. The Greeks, fielding the largest hoplite army ever seen, won a resounding victory, ending Xerxes' ambitions in Greece.